Hey, we're talking turkey this morning on Iowa Live, and when we're talking turkeys and any questions you might have, there's always an expert we love to bring in this time of year, and that is Greta!
Welcome. Good
Greta
morning.
Irwin from the, of course, Iowa Turkey Federation. She is the executive director and home economist. Thank you so much for joining us
You're
today.
welcome. It's always fun to talk turkey, and this is the time of year to
Busy time of year for you, I would imagine.
It is. Yeah, a lot of people are thinking about turkey since it is Thanksgiving, which, you know, it's natural. It's America's birds. Turkeys have been roaming North America way, before we were around, and so it makes sense that we celebrate Thanksgiving with our native bird, which is a turkey.
It absolutely makes sense, but it doesn't always make sense for people who maybe don't cook a big turkey all the time, but they're having family over and they want that tradition. So let's talk about some core things we should think about if maybe this is your first time or maybe you haven't had the best of luck that people should keep in the back of their minds.
Well, do not overthink it.
Okay.
It really is not as difficult as the gourmet chefs on TV really want to make it out to be. Their whole gig is to show you a different way and a new and exciting way to maybe cook turkey. But to me, that really basic value of just salt, pepper, poultry seasoning, a little garlic, maybe a little butter on the skin, and roast it in the oven. And trust your oven. It's a great utensil. It's been well tested. Put that turkey in the oven, shut the door, and forget about it. Go do something else, because those ovens keep the turkey nice and moist. And every time you open that oven door, what hits your face? Heat. And steam.
Yeah.
And steam is moisture. And so keep the door shut, set your timer, and then just forget about it. It's very simple.
I like that. Almost simple might be better.
I like that.
Because before it's like inject this, do that, tie this, stuff that. And it's like you're like, just keep it simple.
Just keep it simple is my best recommendation for that. So, as we think about that, I want you to keep some basic food safety principles in mind.
Absolutely.
We're feeding a lot of folks, and probably that's the underlying fear that most people have. You don't want people to come to your home, have a meal, and then leave not feeling well. And so there's really 4 basic things to keep in mind. Clean your surfaces, make sure everything is washed down well with some nice hot soapy water. Separate, do not cut the lettuce on the same cutting board you cut the turkey on or had some other proteins on without really washing that well. Cook that to 165 degrees as your internal temperature for the turkey, and then make sure you chill things properly. Lots of just basic simple steps that not only at Thanksgiving, I hope you're doing these things every day, because washing your hands before you start prepping food. It's amazing when we've watched people in the kitchen and they know that people are being watched, they still don't wash their hands. So just washing your hands, washing your surfaces are really some good steps to start with.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about thawing out our turkeys for those of us who have them in the freezer, and kind of how is it better in the fridge, on the, what are the best practices for that?
Well, your refrigerator is going to be your best method for thawing it. And I realize this time of year, a lot of times our refrigerators are full. I've already got my cranberry sauce in my refrigerator and some of my other things that I'm going to have for Thanksgiving dinner. So there's not a lot of space. So you can thaw it in your sink under cold running water. Think about it, the turkey's frozen, so cold water is warmer. You don't need to run hot water on it, just cold water in the sink. That's a great way to thaw it.
So letting it sit in the water then for a period of time? Okay.
Yep. And about every 2 hours or so you should change that water just to keep it kind of cool. And otherwise, if the turkey is still somewhat frozen or fully frozen, you can still cook it from frozen. Okay. So at times when I've done a bigger dinner and I've had a frozen turkey, I've put it in at 11 o'clock or midnight and frozen. And then when I wake up in the morning, by 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, my turkey's done. I can carve it, put it into a crock pot, and then be ready for the rest of the meal. So if it's frozen, you can put the whole thing in, put it in your roaster, put it in the oven, cook it at the temperature you normally would, and just figure you're going to take time and a half. So that 4-hour turkey is going to now take 6 hours if it's from frozen.
Okay.
But actually at the end you end up with a really juicy and wonderful turkey.
I was just going to say, doesn't that dry it out at all?
No, if you think about when you've thawed a turkey and you open up that bag, there's a lot of juices that you end up putting into your sink that stays within that turkey and makes great gravy and all the drippings that we want.
I know a lot of people that put them in the bags. Do you recommend that?
I love it because I hate washing dishes. And so by putting it in the bag, it really helps to keep that roaster pan a little bit cleaner and everything. So the Cooking bags are great. Tin foil over the turkey is great. You know, anything that you can just get it into that oven, shut the door, and forget it.
As
Just
I
leave
say,
that door shut.
kind of says like a little set it and forget it. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go back to one of the health aspects of things to think about, temperature. When it
Yes.
comes to testing the temperature in our bird, is it just one and done, like stick it in the top and you know what's going on, or is there a little bit more involved with it when it comes to a turkey?
Well, I think we want to make sure that it is fully cooked, and so testing it in multiple spots is your best option
Okay.
to do. We're looking for that temperature to be 165, and when we have a bigger turkey, you know, there's lots of spots to make sure that it is fully cooked, but we don't want that breast meat dried out.
Right.
So if you look for the 165 in 3 places, we want to make sure that we do it kind of by the wing area, by that thigh, kind of next to the drumstick and the breast area there, and then that thickest part of the breast to make sure that it reaches 165 degrees. Yep, so the pop-up timer is going to help you, but I always say then use the meat thermometer just to double check to make sure everything is fully cooked. And that's where if you want to stuff a turkey, you can stuff it, but you need to make sure that stuffing on the inside also reaches 165 degrees. And that's not on this graphic, but if you're stuffing the turkey, you need to test that stuffing on the inside
As
as
well.
well to make sure it's reached 165 degrees. So that's why we really recommend not stuffing the turkey or not overstuffing that turkey, because you want that to make sure it reaches 165 degrees as well. I do my dressing in my crock pot.
Right.
It's just simple,
Separate.
easy, and I'm just done with it. So.
Okay, good to know. I didn't know that you had to test the stuffing inside
didn't
as well. You're
either.
just like, oh, when the turkey's done, the stuffing's done, right? And magically all this
And you would
happens.
think that cooks faster than the turkey.
Right.
So,
But
yeah.
that's in the center of the
Usually,
turkey,
but-
so it has to, all
yeah.
that heat has to get to that middle. So it's just another spot to test.
Another
Yeah.
thing to think about.
very
Okay,
good advice.
you're talking also when it comes to safety about what to do with the food when we're done enjoying, or maybe we're traveling
Right.
with our food, because a lot of us are visiting family, friends, and things like that. So what are your best practices? Maybe we're at home and we're done with the turkey, but also maybe if we're traveling.
Okay, so if you're at home, if you want to think the danger zone is between 40 degrees and 140 degrees. So what's the temperature of most of our homes when we have family into that house?
Anywhere from 70 to 80.
It's 70 to 80 degrees inside our home. That's within that danger zone
Yeah.
of food safety. So if you've cooked your meal, you've served it, everyone's enjoyed the meal, within 2 hours it's recommended you start putting it into smaller, shallow containers, putting it in the refrigerator. If you know I have too much turkey left over, I need to freeze some, that's a great time to go ahead and pack it up and freeze it. Just get the turkey and the rest of the food off the counter within 2 hours, because that 70, 80 degree home is really a high temperature where bacteria is likely to thrive. So we want to
grow.
make sure after 2 hours, you getting things back into the refrigerator or into the freezer.
And quite often we do have leftovers. If we've
Yeah.
packaged them correctly, got them into the fridge, about how long do you recommend them hanging out in the fridge?
It's about 2 to 3 days in the refrigerator. If not, like I said, put it into the freezer. And with the holidays coming up and we're all busy in November,
Right.
December, I love having that leftover turkey in my refrigerator and in my freezer to make a turkey pot pie or enchiladas or lots of great soups. So it's a great thing to have in your freezer as we're all really busy. So go ahead and put it into your refrigerator, into your freezer, and be ready for a later meal.
And I love that you have wonderful recipes on the website that people can check out as well. So if you're thinking like, how can I utilize my turkey in so many wonderful ways, we encourage you to go to the website. Really quickly, traveling with your turkey, what do you recommend?
Well, it's kind of the same thought process that we just talked about
Okay.
inside your home. So if you have something that's cold, put it in your trunk, because your trunk's going to stay cold. And if it's something that needs to stay hot, put that inside the back, inside your car, in the back
Okay.
seat or somewhere, because you want to keep that as warm as you possibly can. And again, trying to keep it above 140 degrees. So if you put it into a cooler to keep it hot, because coolers will keep things hot as well.
Right.
That's a great idea, but make sure it's reached that 165 degrees. Put it into something to keep it hot, and keep the hot stuff inside the car, and then the cold stuff in the trunk area.
Okay, great advice this morning, things to think about. If people have more questions, they want to follow along with all the great things you guys are doing on a regular basis, where should they go?
IowaTurkey.org. We're happy to answer your questions and talk turkey.
I love
Sometimes
it.
simple is best, right?
Yes, it is.
Simple
Makes it
is
easier for
best. Greta,
everybody.
always great to see you. Thank you, dear, so much.
Well, happy Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
Yes.
you
everybody.
too. You too.
Happy
Great information for everybody.
Thanksgiving. All right, don't go anywhere.